Hello everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the most recent update, what King's Isle did good, and what could use some improvements. So to start off, about 2 days ago, they released a patch which added a few things to the game. The first thing it added is at Sabrina Grainstar, we can now train school-specific weaknesses as well as the school-specific shields. Now, as you might know, the school-specific shields don't come in handy in most matches, and the school-specific weaknesses probably won't for most of the time as well. But, there are some PvE bosses that they might come in handy against, and some of them are going to come in handy in PvP, and so I think this is something that they did quite well on. In addition to the school-specific weaknesses that Sabrina sells, Niles here now also trains the elemental and spirit weaknesses, as well as has their normal spells. So, personally, I believe these two are going to be much more useful in PvP and in PvE, as you can weakness a greater variety of things with the spirit weaknesses for any of the spirit schools, or the elemental ones, in which you actually now weakness the two most oppressive schools in Storm and Fire, because both of which are have a weakness to, well, weaknesses. So, that is that. The update was the addition of the craftability of the atavistic gear for the level 60. If you go over to Gearwise, he now has the crafting recipes for all of the atavistic gear. And for some schools, while this is the best gear in the game, others it's still not, but it is a good alternative to Waterworks. So, each of them costs Sharktooth, a new reagent dropped by bosses, the shells that you can find around, and Aquamarine, also things that you can find around Celestia. You can craft each of them by getting the relative badge, but there is a slight thing that I want to talk about and show you all. Each of the badges is locked behind about 45 to 40 runs, 40 to 45 runs, with this side quest boss being the easiest to farm for 35 runs. Now, Archealios drops the amulet, which personally depends on whether or not you want this amulet or you want the amulet that can give you a Shango's Ice, or whatever your school's amulet, which gives you a 45 blade from Safaria. Personally, I think that the Ice Blade one's better, but you do get an Ice Blade or your blade from the boots of this set, which is also a 45 blade. So, one way or another, it is interchangeable, and it's just up to you as the player. Now, 45 runs is a lot of runs, specifically for some certain bosses, such as Mithraia in the Trial of the Spheres, where you have a mandatory amount of fights, being 7 mandatory fights. So that is not a fun one to do, let alone to do it 45 times. Another one is the Chancel, which has a mandatory 4 fights, depending if you do the glitch with a full team, with a team of 3 or more, sorry. If you don't, it's a mandatory 6 fights. It's not fun to do. All the other ones are single fights, and Calypso is easily farmable thanks to the lever. But in all, the count of what you need to do is just too high. And personally, I do think it should be dropped to a much more reasonable 25 and or 15. Also, if you started farming before the badges were added, it does not count those towards your end goal. And also, the crafting at 45 runs is pretty much obsolete, because after about 45 runs, if you don't have full gear, you are just unlucky anyways. So, that is something major to talk about. So, on to the rest. The last change I want to talk about is specifically to PvP and advanced combat, and that being 2 spell bans that were coming. The first one is Top Path Scales of Destiny, so it no longer can do the 225 base damage hit, but instead anybody using scales now has to do the 200 base damage hit with the echoes attached to it. So while it is still a really good hit, it is nowhere near as deadly as it used to be, but it is better versus any shield spamming schools and or heal spammers. The other ban is Stormelf. Stormelf has been holding shielding schools hostage for a while now, thanks to the fact that it is a storm dot that dealt Storm DPP and countered shields, which are supposed to be Storm's weakness. So thanks to those 2 spells getting banned, shield schools have raised up in the meta, but that means fire is also banned. Well, not banned, but much higher in the meta. The other ban is the Top Path of all golems, which affects fire more than anything else, in the fact that it no longer has access to Glacial Golem, which was its most powerful move versus storms, keeping them at bay with that shield. So, in that sense, Storm did get a little bit of a buff against fire, but in general, fire is just doing much better now than most other schools, other than probably balance. So, I hope you all found that this helpful. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps out the algorithm, it helps out me. And I will see you all around. And remember, all glory to the School of Man. Bye, y'all.